Imagine if you could turn your passion into $1 billion tech startup without spending a single dollar. This is the story of EasyA, founded by brothers Phil and Dom Kwok, who are revolutionizing Web3 education and providing once-in-a-lifetime opportunities for students to make a name for themselves through free hackathons hosted all around the world.
Today, we now have startups that have come out of EasyA app, come out of EasyA hackathons that are valued at over $2.5 billion.
How are they able to help dozens of students win tens of thousands of dollars in prize money and go on to build billion-dollar startups? Well, I had the chance to chat with Phil about their journey, how their business model works, and what it means for the future of education. And they have a shockingly similar story to my brother and I. So if you run an online business or you're thinking about getting started, even if you're a student, there's going to be a ton of wisdom here. But the truth is, like all businesses, they weren't an overnight success. And in fact, the first version of their business was a simple idea that even high school students could do.
So 2019, Dom and I, we leave our jobs to co-found EasyA. Like the real big problem that we saw was there's no way to actually get help on questions when you get stuck on it. Like, well, this is again, a little bit before ChatGPT. Now you'd probably ask AI, as you say, Matty, but you're stuck on a math problem. And to be honest, AI is still pretty bad at maths. Well, you can go and ask a tutor. That's super expensive, right? To actually have a private tutor. You can go ask your teacher. A lot of students are too scared to ask their teacher for help. And third of all, maybe you ask like a parent or a sibling, but nobody really enjoys that experience either. So the genesis behind EasyA was actually a mobile app that allowed anybody to get help from a tutor within minutes, right from the push of a button.
A lot of people think they need to come up with some crazy idea or become the next Silicon Valley giant. But there's a really smart reason why you shouldn't do that. As a student, Phil experienced a pain point. He and his friends needed a better way to get help with their studies because he was one of them, and he had friends who needed it too. By focusing on a problem he experienced, he validated his business idea quickly. He knew there was demand because he was part of the target market, and that's why they scaled so quickly. But as with any growing business, they soon hit another painful roadblock.
We eventually hit this sort of like this bottleneck, which was having enough people to actually supply all of that demand. So in a similar way to how Uber is a two-sided platform, EasyA was a two-sided platform. You had people who could answer questions on one end, people who wanted help on the other. And managing those was the real pain.
This is a challenge that I am very familiar with. When I was a doctor, I could only see 20 patients a day. And if I saw any more, then the quality of each visit would tank. And I think that's why we have so many people who are unhappy with the healthcare system, but topic for another time. My point is, this is a huge problem for many service-based businesses. They plateau because it's impossible to help more people unless you also hire more qualified people. Phil realized if they wanted to grow, they had to do something big, which is really scary for a lot of founders.
We were chatting with a lot of our friends who were in Web3. So we first got started in Web3 way back in, before it was even called Web3, it was really crypto, 2013, Bitcoin mining. That was our first foray into the space. Why don't you actually get this amazing community that you have learning about these new technologies? Really from a developer standpoint. So building projects, as you said, building projects and teaching them that way.
EasyA had built a massive community of learners. So to beat the scale issue, they decided to narrow their focus to a subset of their community that was interested in Web3. This is called niching in. By honing in on a specific type of customer, they were able to identify an even bigger problem and opportunity that made the Web3 interested people feel even more heard. It might seem like a completely different direction, but they were essentially moving up market, right? These were still students and they were still hosting these events at universities. They were just focusing on a particular group and their unique problems. In that way, it became much more scalable by using digital products and courses and in-person events. But then they came to another crossroads, one that almost every business encounters at some point in their journey.
We were still running EasyA, the tutoring side at the time. We had this product that people really loved that we started when we first launched EasyA, but gradually the growth was all just very heavily on the Web3 side. This emerging technology that people were thrilled about connecting with other cool people, smart people, building new stuff, starting startups. Today, we now have startups that have come out of EasyA app, come out of EasyA hackathons that are valued at over $2.5 billion.
EasyA was essentially running two products, student tutoring and Web3 education. But as any entrepreneur knows, you can't build two things at once. Well, okay, you can, it's just incredibly hard to do either of them well. To be honest, this is something I'm still struggling with a lot at Koi. On the one hand, we've built this huge community of students, but we also have a subset of creator-curious learners who want to build an online business. And I know that we have to just focus on one group to make the biggest impact. It's just really tough, Like we want to help everybody, but by doing two things at once, we're just doing both of them a disservice. So I asked Phil how they navigated making that hard decision.
I think that there is a huge thing to be said for having a very strong vision. But there's this famous quote from Mark Zuckerberg as well when he's giving his Harvard commencement speech pretty well. It's that ideas don't come out fully formed. The great entrepreneurs say, yes, you need to be stubborn on the vision, never give up. But then as well, you do need to refine it. And I think that there's this crucial amalgamation of these two sides, which is have a vision, but at the same time, you need to talk to the people who you are. Talk to your customers, talk to the people who are using your product, and eventually that's going to help to form your vision. And it's these two, in some ways, they feel like competing forces. You'll have your own ideas. People will have their own ideas as to what you should build it into. You need to find that middle ground between both of them, and then ultimately, you're just asking people what they want to see in your product.
They took a very objective approach to it. They ran the numbers and they did some math, and they realized that growth, revenue heavily leaned towards the Web3 side. So as much as they loved tutoring, if they wanted to grow and make a bigger impact, they had to go all in on Web3. But the key to their success wasn't only about having clarity to go all in on one kind of customer, but it's also because of the way that they did it. Free hackathons.
We're now doing like a hackathon pretty much like every single week. The one in SF, we're going to have $30,000 and then hundreds of thousands more in grants together with our partners. And then we have this one at Harvard, another 20K plus grants, London, 20K plus grants. So yeah, first hackathon was the start of it all. It was just seeing people build cool ideas.
Walk me through what is it like at a hackathon? My vision of it is from The Social Network, the movie. And when Jesse Eisenberg is doing that whole Facebook hackathon thing, but
yeah,
I'm curious to know what is the experience like?
So there's less beer, and there's less dramatic music. A lot of people think that it's super, super intense, which it is, but at the same time, it's a lot of fun. People come in and there's workshops, people get to meet each other, they get to meet teams. And really it's just people who are excited about building a solution to the problem that we're trying to solve at the hackathon. The venue stays open all overnight on Saturday evening. Sunday morning, people are still coding, and then they submit their project at midday. Then there's judging, there's award ceremony as well. And at the end of it, people just walk out, well, of course, with a lot of prize money, but at the same time, they walk out having learned a lot. And I think that hackathons are basically just an amazing learning experience. Build something very, very quickly when you might think it takes weeks. Just go to a hackathon and you'd be surprised what you can do in a weekend.
If you are interested in tech in any way or startup at all, it's almost a no-brainer that you should be coming to these hackathons, because this is these are the reps that you need if you want to build a business at all. And these are things that you just definitely don't learn, I assume, if you just go to school.
These hackathons were genius. Any students, even remotely interested in Web3 or startup culture or entrepreneurship, it was a no-brainer for them to go, right? These events literally brought together the best and the brightest minds, opportunities to network, learn, build, and compete for cold, hard cash, right? Tens of thousands of dollars, and it was completely free. And the more successful these hackathons became, with people developing billion-dollar ideas, the more attractive it became for new students, and it served as its own self-sustaining marketing. But as amazing as this all sounded, there was one burning question that was left unanswered for me that tied this whole thing together. How does a business survive, let alone grow, if everything it offers is free?
Then the app is free, the hackathons are free, everything's free, right? But at the end of the day, yes, there are costs. Hackathons are expensive to run, apps are expensive to build. We have an engineering team, we have an ops team. There are costs. So what we do is we partner together with partners. At the end of the day, you can think of the EasyA app as being this amazing distribution funnel. And so what we're very, very fortunate to have is this amazing model where actually we're able to keep the app free and the hackathons free because we are partnering with people, and rather businesses, who want to get in front of our audience. So let's say that's a particular Web3 protocol that, and they have this technology that want to get people learning about it. They want to get feedback on it because at hackathons, people are building on it. They want to get people eventually launching startups on it. And that's all in their interest, right? Because eventually those startups are going to become very, very valuable in their ecosystem. and they're going to generate a lot of value for them as well. They're going to start using their products more and more.
Their success came from collaboration. They found a way to create a win-win-win situation for their sponsors, for EasyA, and for the students. Zero risk and limitless possibility for their customers, 100% inbound revenue for EasyA because sponsors wanted to partner, and the sponsors are happy because customer success directly feeds into their own growth in the future. It's a beautifully designed business model, all centered around collaboration with a purpose behind it, providing the world with more brilliant startups and ideas that solve real problems. I've definitely been strategizing how I can use EasyA's journey as inspiration to grow my own education business, right? Like how opportunities multiply once you start approaching things as a multiplayer game. But if you're still in the early stages of figuring out what your business should be, remember earlier in the video, I mentioned that finding a problem with demand is the first and most important step. And from working directly with clients to start their own business, it's the most common place to get stuck at. And so if you want to learn a simple system to figure it out, we made a video that can get you started, which you can check out right over here.